The prologue to the movie begins with a voiceover in the year 1947. Vinayak Rao recounts the tale of the goddess of prosperity to his teenage son, Panjaran. The goddess symbolizes endless riches, in the form of gold and bountiful sustenance provided by grains, with the earth serving as her nurturing womb. According to the tale, during the creation of the universe, she gave birth to 160 million gods. Among them, her eldest and most beloved child, Haystar, became consumed by his insatiable greed for her wealth and provision. While Haystar managed to obtain the goddess's gold, he faced opposition from the other gods as he sought to claim all her food. The goddess intervened and saved Haystar, imposing a condition that he should never be worshipped or remembered in history. As a result, Haystar remained dormant within his mother's womb for many years. However, the people of Tumbad, the very place where Haystar is trapped, dared to defy this ancient taboo. They constructed a temple dedicated to Haystar, disregarding the warnings and consequences. This act invoked the wrath of the gods, resulting in a curse upon the village. As a consequence, Tumbad experienced incessant rainfall, which plagued its lands with hardship and suffering. The voiceover ends, and the movie begins in the year 1918. We see a woman dressed in red in a rain-soaked village of Tumbad. Amidst the downpour, she quickly makes her way towards a grand mansion. Inside resides a man called Sarkar, the local lord. He sits outside, looking as if he has been waiting for the woman to come. As she arrives, together they go in and have an intimate encounter. While they are inside, the woman urges Sarkar to hurry up, as she has responsibilities awaiting her at home. She mentions an old lady, and talks fearfully about how the old woman will wake up if she does not go home on time. The man gets angry and tells her that if she wishes to go home early, she should come to him early. In the meantime, our attention is drawn to a statue of the deity Haystar, clutching a precious gold coin within its hand in the background. The woman happens to want this gold coin for herself. However, when she dares to request the coin from Sarkar, he refuses her plea. He says that such a valuable item cannot be bestowed so easily. It must be earned through deserving means. On the other hand, we see two boys named Vinayak and Sadashiv, who are the sons of the woman from earlier. They run towards their house in the heavy rain, but when they reach home, they see their house is locked. As they talk, it is evident that they are afraid of the old woman too. They contemplate on what to do if she wakes up and who will feed her. The older brother gets angry at the younger one and tells him to keep quiet. They wait for a while and then open the lock to go inside. Once inside, Vinayak takes on the responsibility of cooking for the old woman. As he cooks, his younger brother keeps asking him questions. After the dish is prepared, they pour it in a bowl, and together they take it towards her quarters. As they near it, Vinayak hands over the plate to Sadashiv, ordering him to feed her since he cooked. Fearfully, Sadashiv approaches the old lady's resting place. He hears a strange, creepy noise as he nears the room. But before he can fully get inside, suddenly their mother arrives and intervenes. She grabs the plate from his hand and smacks both of them for doing what they did. Then the woman prepares another meal by herself and takes it to the old lady's room, making sure that her sons are far away. Once inside, we see her tending to the old lady and trimming her nails. Her foot, which seems badly burned and almost monstrous, is chained to the wall. That night, while Vinayak is trimming his mother's hair, he inquires if their father, Sarkar, gave her the gold coin. The woman responds by saying that he didn't. This revelation happens to anger Vinayak, as he starts calling the man names and urging his mother to threaten him for the gold coin. His mother slaps him, scolding him to be respectful towards his father. Suddenly, they hear the old woman's coughs and cries, prompting Vinayak's mother to grab an axe and go check out if everything is all right. The old woman has awakened from her slumber and is strangely instilling fear in Vinayak and his mother. The woman fearfully approaches her chamber and calls out to the old lady, telling her to go to sleep or else Haystar will come for her. This seems to terrify the mysterious old lady and makes her instantly fall asleep once again. The following day, the family discovers that Sarkar has passed away. After his rites are completed, the very disoriented and trembling woman decides to leave Tumbad and relocate to Pune with her two children. However, as she reveals this to her elder son, he refutes the idea. Vinayak insists that they remain in the mansion where the rumored treasure is hidden, since it is all theirs now that Sarkar has passed away. The woman gets angry at her greedy son and vehemently denies the existence of any treasure. She tells him how Sarkar wasted his entire life in search of that money. Vinayak suggests they wake up the old woman and ask her about it. Hearing this, his mother gets even angrier and asks him to go wake up the old woman and ask her himself, but the boy remains there, not willing to do so. Disheartened by his mother's refusal to stay, Vinayak steps outside the house, where he finds Sadashiv seated on a tree. They engage in conversation, where his little brother asks about Pune and how life will be there. Mid-conversation, suddenly Vinayak hears a snap and his brother's scream. He looks back to see that Sadashiv has unexpectedly fallen from the tree. The boy runs to check on his brother and finds that he has sustained a severe injury from hitting his head on a stone. The boy runs to inform their mother, who takes charge of the situation and takes Sadashiv to the doctor. As they depart, she instructs Vinayak that he will need to feed the old lady that night. In the event that she wakes up, his mother instructs Vinayak to tell her to go back to sleep or else Haystar will come for her. Vinayak inquires about Haystar, but his worried mother leaves without a reply. Upon returning home, Vinayak discovers that the food has been burnt. Determined, he searches for ingredients to cook again, but accidentally spills flour on them. In the midst of this, he begins hearing the eerie sound of the old woman singing, which fills him with intense fear. Overwhelmed by terror, he cautiously approaches her room and attempts to open the door. However, his fear gets the better of him, causing him to retreat. At that moment, the old woman begins disclosing information about the treasure, fueling Vinayak's greed. Driven by his desires, he opens the door and the mysterious old lady's face is finally revealed. Her entire body looks burned, and her voice is hoarse and dark. It is clear that she is not a normal human being. However, Vinayak is seduced by her talks of the treasure. He approaches her, inquiring about the treasure. The old lady's face has been plunged with terrifying nails. She picks up a small bowl and insists that he must provide her with food first before she starts revealing any details about the treasure. As Vinayak comes closer to the monster, she looks at him and suddenly reveals her intention to devour him. In a state of terror, Vinayak flees from the old woman and barges into the kitchen to resume cooking. He desperately tries to remember the statement that his mother told him to say if the old woman wakes up, but comes up with nothing. Suddenly, he hears the noise of chains hitting the floor, and his foot is bound by metal. He looks back to find that the old lady has emerged from her room and is trying to restrain Vinayak by tying his feet. Laughing maniacally, she drags him back into her room while Vinayak desperately tries to escape. Paralyzed by fear, he forgets the name of Haystar. However, just as the monster is about to consume him, Vinayak suddenly remembers the name Haystar, making the monster cower back in fear. Then he once again shouts at her to go to sleep, or else Haystar will come. Miraculously, and to Vinayak's relief, the old woman finally passes out asleep. As Vinayak frees his leg and stands up cautiously to leave the room, suddenly there are vigorous knocks on the door. Turns out that his mother has returned with the tragic news of Sadashiv's demise. She cries her heart out while tending to Vinayak's wounds. They perform the last rites for Sadashiv, and ultimately decide to leave Tumbad. During their departure, Vinayak suggests tying up the old woman to extract the treasure's whereabouts from her. However, his mother sternly rebukes him for his greed and instructs him never to return to Tumbad again. They engage in a scuffle where his mother smacks him to make him come back to his senses. Little did his mother know the extent of his son's ambition and greed for the treasure. Fast forward to 15 years later, we see Vinayak, now a healthy young man, return to Tumbad, which is still drenched with heavy rain despite his promise to his mother of never coming back. The man heads directly to his old house, where he finds the old woman after searching around for a while. The old woman is still alive, although with her body decomposed and overgrown with trees. Vinayak is overjoyed to find her still breathing and talking, despite her condition amidst the falling ground. Curious about the treasure, Vinayak queries her. In response, she advises him against pursuing the treasure, warning that he may end up in a similar state to her own. However, undeterred, Vinayak persists, prompting her to spill the beans and tell him where the treasure is. The old lady laughs and tells him that he is indeed her own blood, as he is as greedy as herself. Finally, she discloses everything, including the location of the treasure, but in return, she requests her salvation, asserting that her hunger cannot be satiated, and urges him to burn her. Driven by his desire for the treasure, Vinayak embarks on a months-long search within the mansion and finally finds the well that the old lady was talking about. He then comes back to her, and after asking her once more, he eventually chooses to release the old woman from her torment by setting her on fire. Upon returning to Pune, Vinayak finds that his wife has started selling wheat to support herself while he was gone. The next day, he goes to a man named Raghav, whom he borrowed money from previously. To repay his debt, Vinayak offers Raghav a gold coin. When the man asks, he tells him that it is not a stolen coin, but rather from his ancestors. The man finally pays off all his debts and begins to make frequent visits to Tumbad and sell gold coins to Raghav. Astonished by Vinayak's newfound wealth, Raghav inquires about the rumored existence of a treasure in Tumbad. Vinayak affirms its presence, encouraging Raghav to go and retrieve it for himself, but the man merely laughs it off. Later, Raghav is met by one of the English officers who helps him carry out his opium business, telling him that he may get transferred so his business might get busted. Stressed out, the man visits Vinayak's house and questions Vinayak's wife about the source of his gold coins. However, Vinayak arrives and they engage in conversation. Before departing, Raghav expresses his desire to form a partnership with Vinayak, but Vinayak declines the offer. As Vinayak's wealth grows, he indulges in lavish and immoral activities. In a disturbing turn of events, Raghav, after getting cornered by one of his English associates for money, widowed daughter-in-law to Vinayak as a mistress, and she is employed to perform household chores. During the night, the girl discreetly confides in Vinayak, while his wife is sleeping, about Raghav's intentions to visit Tumbad and seize the treasure for himself. Raghav, stressed out and desperate for money, arrives at the palace and Vinayak discreetly trails behind him. Intentionally, Vinayak directs Raghav towards the entrance of the well, also known as the goddess's womb. Vinayak ventures inside, and Raghav looks at his actions from the corner. Eventually, Vinayak emerges from the well and cunningly takes out gold coins for Raghav to see and observe from his hiding place. After Vinayak departs, Raghav summons the courage to approach and enter the ominous and dark well, feeling an overwhelming sense of fear. He goes deep into the well, and comes upon a dark red place. Back outside, Vinayak sits, smiling in victory and making dolls of dough. Inside, he discovers a box containing a flower doll. Inside the well, the walls strangely move as if they are alive, and he hears the sound of someone breathing. Terrified, he moves around and comes across a box. Raghav opens it to find a dough doll. As he retrieves the doll, a malevolent creature suddenly assaults him. Meanwhile, Vinayak returns to the goddess's womb and discovers Raghav there, attached to a wall and screaming. He moves closer to find that Raghav has fallen victim to a curse, transforming him into a monstrous being akin to the old woman. Desperate, Raghav gurgles and looks desperately at Vinayak to release him. In response, Vinayak instructs him to sleep, or else Haystar will come, causing Raghav to fall into a slumber. Vinayak then proceeds to make a protective circle of flour around himself and retrieves a dough doll from the box. Haystar, the creature itself, emerges once more. Bound by the curse, Haystar is unable to touch grains voluntarily, preventing him from entering the flour circle. Vinayak plays with the malevolent creature, making it beg for food. As Haystar implores Vinayak for food, Vinayak refuses to provide it. In a fit of rage, Haystar attacks Raghav, forcibly tearing off his hand. Witnessing the gruesome scene, Vinayak throws the flower doll to one side, diverting Haystar's attention. Seizing the opportunity, Vinayak swiftly collects the gold coins from a bundle tied behind Haystar and prepares to flee. However, before leaving, he hears Raghav's desperate cries and shows mercy to the man by throwing the lantern at him to set him on fire and end his suffering. Back at home, Vinayak's wife finds out about the maid trying to seduce her husband and kicks her out, causing a scene. While Vinayak sits with his infant son and smiles, not a care in the world. The movie fast forwards 14 years later to India's independence in 1947. We see Vinayak drunk and passed out, and still going back and forth from Pune to Tumbad. The man has amassed considerable wealth and is a rich and spoiled man. He now has 3 children, 2 daughters, and a son named Panjarang. Recognizing his own aging body and the difficulties he faces in extracting gold coins, Vinayak initiates the training of his son, Panjarang, in this craft. He intends to pass down his knowledge and expertise to his son, ensuring the continuation of their wealth and greed. Presently, Panjarang trains vigorously and shares his training details with his father during dinner, who looks rather uninterested. That night, Vinayak asks his wife to make their son ready, as he will be taking him along to Tumbad the next day. Panjarang is ecstatic to know this. The next day, Vinayak's wife brings him a box, and when she enters the room we see the maid that she threw out years back, sitting on the bed, all dressed up like a queen. Turns out she wasn't abandoned after all. Anyway, the story continues, and along the way to Tumbad, Vinayak shares the tale of Haystar and warns Panjarang about the potential consequences of his curse. Panjarang becomes slightly fearful after hearing the strange story about Haystar. Vinayak tells him not to worry, as he will understand everything once he is inside the goddess's womb. They finally reach their destination in Tumbad, which is still drenched in rain. They quickly step inside the mansion, and Vinayak proceeds to instruct his son in the art of crafting flower dolls. He mentions to add pebbles as well, since the monster eats them too and it buys them more time. The man demonstrates by throwing the dolls, explaining that it's merely a practice session without any specific purpose, and they will only look around today. They then enter the goddess's womb, where Vinayak instructs Panjarang to create a circle using dry flour, emphasizing that Haystar fears grains. He tells his son to remain inside the circle, where the monster cannot come. As they are conversing, Panjarang asks about the consequences of the monster biting someone, to which his father says that they will become cursed like their grandmother. Suddenly, the boy's eyes land on a black mark and rotting corpse attached to one of the walls. He asks if it is their grandmother. Vinayak looks grimly at the corpse, without any remorse, and tells his son that it was his friend, whom Haystar attacked. After hearing strange monstrous sounds, a terrified Panjarang questions when Haystar will appear. Vinayak clarifies that Haystar emerges solely from a wet flower doll, which is why they entered after discarding the doll outside. Suddenly, Panjarang takes out the hidden flower doll he brought with him, causing Haystar to manifest as soon as he unveils it. Vinayak, who was outside the circle, quickly jumps back in after realizing the danger. He swiftly tosses the doll aside and urges his son to leave promptly. However, Panjarang seizes the opportunity to tug Haystar's bag and collect the gold coins, while the monster is distracted with devouring the doll. He quickly then follows Vinayak outside. Once they get out, Vinayak quickly shuts the lid, blocking Haystar. His son's actions anger the man, and he furiously hits the boy, making the gold coins that he grabbed drop down. After Vinayak cools down, they eventually collect them and are on their way back to Pune. In this visit with his son, it becomes apparent that Vinayak's son is even greedier than him. Upon their arrival, Vinayak's wife secretly tries to ask her son about the happenings in Tumbad and what it is that they did. However, the boy refuses to yield any information. On the other side, we see Vinayak engaging in conversation with a man who tells him to buy a new house, since his old one does not suit his status. He learns from them that his Tumbad mansion has been given away to the government, who will be renovating the place. The man is shocked to hear the news, and the man eventually leaves. Meanwhile, his little son takes the gold coin to his father's mistress, asking him to be his mistress too, as he will soon become the head of the house and marry the woman. The crazy woman laughs and takes the coin from him. Nothing good comes out of greed. Later, Pandurang finds his father in a drunken state, and Vinayak shows his son all his accumulated wealth of gold and money. He then remembers his mother and cries himself to sleep. The next morning, Vinayak wakes up to find his mistress with the gold coin. The woman tells him about his son's actions, and a livid Vinayak beats the shit out of Pandurang. While he is beating his son, the little boy confronts his father, pointing out that he has been doing it wrong all along. He shares with his father that the gold coins are not obtained from Haystar, but from his bundle. He suggests retrieving Haystar's bundle instead, proposing a strategy involving multiple dough dolls to prolong the time it takes for Haystar to consume them. Enthused by this idea, Vinayak forgets all about beating him and expresses his immense satisfaction. The next day, he takes his son along with him to a brothel, and they sit together, taking part in indecent acts. Meanwhile, back at home, preparations are being made. Determined to retrieve Haystar's bundle, Vinayak and Pandurang gather a substantial amount of flour. They visit the mansion and vigilantly craft numerous dolls. Both the father and the son are looking forward to being filthy rich. Together, with the numerous dolls, they proceed to the goddess's womb. Once inside, they draw the protective circle and enthusiastically begin. Vinayak takes out one of the dolls, summoning Haystar. The monster appears and slowly crawls down one of the walls, roaring menacingly. However, as Vinayak looks, he is horrified to see the Haystar suddenly turn into two. Much to their alarm, they keep multiplying. Realization soon dawns on them that there are as many Haystars present as many dolls they brought. Soon enough, the duo is encircled by a terrifying number of Haystars. Vinayak instructs his son to put the dolls back in, but it is of no use. Overwhelmed by fear, they begin tossing the dolls one by one, causing the Haystars to engage in fierce competition to devour them. The beasts claw and bite at one another, each trying to wrench away the dolls for himself. As they fight, one Haystar is thrown to the side and comes flying at them, but the flour grains make him burn to ashes. Amidst the chaos, Pandurang succumbs to unconsciousness. Vinayak watches his son, and with no apparent solution at hand, he makes a courageous decision to save his son. He binds the remaining dolls to his body. Suddenly, Pandurang awakens after hearing the beasts roar. He finds his father covered in dolls and ready to step out of the protective circle of flour. The boy understands his father's intention and begs him to stop. He cries, clutching his father's leg, but the man pushes him aside, and everything goes dark. When Pandurang lights a match to see, he finds his father ascending a rope. As Vinayak ascends, all the Haystars pursue him in their quest for the dolls. They claw at him and fall down one by one, leading to their gradual demise due to the flower circle. After a considerable period, all the Haystars are destroyed, and a devastated Pandurang comes out from the goddess's womb. Although the boy has survived the perilous ordeal, he lost his father to their greed for gold. As Pandurang emerges from the well, he witnesses a devastating sight. Vinayak has fallen victim to a curse and transformed into a monstrous being. However, despite his transformation, Vinayak has accomplished his mission of retrieving Haystar's bundle. He offers the bundle to Pandurang, shouting at him to take it, since it is what he desired, but the boy cries and refuses to accept it. Instead, he sets his father ablaze and eases him out of his misery, after telling him to sleep, or else Haystar will come for him. The man's greed finally becomes the reason for his demise. Amidst the burning, Vinayak laughs, for he realizes that his son has learned a profound lesson about the destructive nature of greed. The movie ends with Pandurang leaving the mansion without taking the bundle, symbolizing his rejection of the temptations and consequences associated with greed. Greed indeed is a curse.